So, the other week I was called by the editor of our student newspaper, and he wanted to interview me. So we talked. And one of the questions was, he said, why are we stuck? Why is there this stalemate? Okay. And this is the world according to Greg, so nobody else is sort of monopoly here. There are a number of reasons why I think we are in this position. One is that the target that we're shooting for is extremely small. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we are trying to balance multiple values, and that sweet spot is extremely small. The ecosystem for public discourse and policy development in this state is not set up to solve these kinds of problems. And I'll talk more about that in a second. Everybody is right. The Kia'i are right for any of a number of reasons. The nationalists are right. Yeah, we haven't totally addressed the injustices of the overthrow. The state is right. Yes, sitting in the middle of the road and blocking a public access is illegal. TMT is right. They did everything they were supposed to do. So they should have the right to move forward. One of the reasons why we're stuck is because everybody's right, and we're trying to fix that or address those issues in a context that isn't set up, or within a system that isn't set up to do that. Whose definition of sacred do we privilege? And lastly, this is not a legal issue. The reason for this stalemate is not because of legal interpretation. The courts have ruled. This is a political issue with international and existential ramifications. There's been a lot of listening that has gone on dating back to 2000 with all the community outreach and engagement and whatnot. All of that stuff has been incorporated in one way or another, or most of it is. Okay. More recently, a lot of my work has been with the mayor and the governor and President Lasner in trying to create alternative spaces with community to have different conversations about how do we move forward out of this stalemate that we're in. These are just some of the larger, more notable meetings that have been held, and not just by me, by the way. I mean, the AG and Chair Case have had their own meetings with cultural practitioners and descendants. Governor, mayor, president, they've all had their own meetings with the business community and others. Thousands of emails, personal communication. You know, I have 900 emails, unread emails in my inbox right now. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And there have been attempts to sit directly with the Kia'i and have a conversation. And obviously those haven't gone the way we would have liked, but we still try because we believe those conversations are important. What have we heard? A whole range of issues. Enough is enough. The Mauna is sacred. We need to stop TMT, then we're going to get all the other telescopes down. We've heard that. The state can't privilege one definition of sacred over another. Our beef with TMT isn't about sovereignty, but at the same time it is. We've had people tell us that. This project represents just another taking. The people of Hawaii Island should decide. We've heard more about home rule. There have been 126 years of broken promises and failed commitments to Hawaiians by the state. There have been a lot of things that the state has done, but the perception, the feeling is not enough. There's been a history of mismanagement by UH, so UH needs to go. As part of the process, OHA trustees unanimously supported the project, and then they changed their mind. How come? As part of the process, Kapakumana did not oppose the project. UH has changed and is now a better steward of these lands than DLNR or OHA or anyone else could be. State needs to enforce the law. You hear that all the time. We need to make governor, you need to ensure there is a future for astronomy because it's that important. TMT should not be held hostage to all of this past injustice. Astronomy itself is a fitting activity to take place on the people that connects us to the heavens. The Mauna is big enough to share. I don't think any of this is new to any of you. So what are some ideas that have sort of bubbled to the top? Not all of which that we control, we meaning the university. There are ideas about, is there a different way to change the ownership structure of these observatories? You know, if community, including Native Hawaiians, had an ownership interest in these observatories, would that make a difference? In some people's mind, yes. Identify a new management structure. That's the change management idea that gets floated all the time. Explore other proposals for land tenure. Maybe transfer the ownership not to the university, but to some third-party independent entity. Native Hawaiian organization, maybe. Establish a Native Hawaiian cultural presence up at the summit. That's part of our conditions of the CUP, and we would definitely like to do that. Change decision-making regarding ceded lands, starting with Mauna Kea. Address any of a number of Native Hawaiian concerns regarding housing, health, ceded land revenue, self-determination. We, the university, stand ready to support those efforts, because we don't control them all. Broaden research and teaching on Mauna Kea to include exploring the concepts of Native Hawaiian cosmology, culture, and science. The Mauna is a teacher, let the Mauna teach us, and let's not just make it about astronomy. And a lot of people have been saying, invoke makahiki. Ask TMT and the Ho'opaio, the opposition, to take a temporary delay. The university doesn't control all of those things. We can contribute to some we do control. Some of that's why in the board resolution that was on the front page, you see a lot of stuff that sort of touches on these things. We are going to focus on the things that we do control and support the things that move the state in a more positive direction. I have to think in terms of strategy and principles, not just sort of specific actions. These are three principles that guide me in my work, how I approach things. One is, how do we become more inclusive in our decision making? We have some systems in place. How can we make those more inclusive of different voices at the table? To me, the key question in that whole idea is, how do we preserve what others value without devaluing what is important to you? We have to expand as a university our educational mission when it comes to the Mauna. And it can't just be about astronomy. The Mauna is the teacher. Any of a number of things the Mauna can teach us. And we are committed to exploring shared governance, collaborative management, other alternative forms of management. With the caveat that I think, there have been proposals put out there in which university and even DLNR are not part of a new management structure. That makes no sense to us. Because those creating the value to the community, whatever that value may be, whether it may be the aspirational twinkle in that child's eye or a real dollar being invested in the community, we need to be at the table. Because otherwise we run the risk of just making this like a commercial operation and don't truly value how all of these pieces need to come together. I also believe, as do some in the astronomy community, that the future of astronomy will be defined by community. And that's worldwide. That's not just here in Mauna Kea. A very simple reason. Best places to do ground-based astronomy are on mountaintops. Mountaintops are always going to be sacred to someone. If we don't figure out a way to earn the privilege to do astronomy on the mountaintops, we've lost the battle. I don't know of another scholarly discipline right now that's in the position of astronomy, that is in the same position astronomy is. That their future is very much tied to community and what the community wants or doesn't want. For those of you who have been up in the Mauna, maybe you've seen this. A couple of weeks ago was the first time I saw it on an early morning drive from, I live in Kona, so I was driving to Hilo for meetings. Some graffiti pohaku that someone put up. It says, Ho'oponopono with kupuna kim TMT. I was actually gratified when I saw that, because it said to me that people are recognizing we got to find a way to sit down and talk. And maybe that conversation is not about TMT to begin with. Maybe it's just about who are you and why do you feel the way you do. But we got to find a way to sit down and talk. But there's several layers to that. There's several pieces to that. You have to have willing parties. And thus far, it's sort of been ambivalent at best. And you have to decide who's at the table. You have multiple interests represented in the Kia'i. You have multiple interests represented with TMT. You have different interests represented within UH and the state. So who's at the table? So one of the things that we've had to do is work through multiple envoys. You're trying to find out all of these stakeholders. Would they be willing? How would they be willing? What would that look like? Et cetera, et cetera. We do believe that the process has to be culturally based. Some people have advised us, some practitioners have advised us that Ho'oponopono in its purest form is not the right process. But we do need to have a culturally based process. And because of the international nature of this conflict, we do believe we need to have some expertise at the table to help us sort of think through how do you bridge international conflicts. When countries come together that have different needs and different expectations.